when it comes to property investing, location is king. So how do you choose the best area to invest in? And what are the signs that a good suburb has turned for the worse? Joining us now with his insight is Jeremy Shepherd, Head of Research, Select Residential Property. Jeremy, welcome to the show. First of all, how do you uncover these good suburbs gone bad?
Right, well, I use a tool called the location score, and it's a gauge of supply and demand. As you know, this fundamental law of economics states that if demand rises and supply remains constrained, then prices will go up. And of course, property adheres to that law. So location score is a measure of the supply and demand of property markets in Australia. So what I've done in recent research is I've tried to find these markets where the location score over the last couple of years has deteriorated for any property market around the country from good to bad. So you've got these good markets that have gone pear-shaped.
So, Jeremy, how do you, you're harking me back to my high school economics. How are the scores calculated?
Well, we gather a range of data, of base data, from a number of different sources, and we derive statistics similar to what you're probably familiar with, like auction clearance rates, quite topical at the moment, things like vacancy rates. There are a total of 8 different indicators that we use, and every indicator is looking for some kind of metric regarding supply or demand. And we score each suburb in Australia every month on each indicator, and then we combine those scores into a single score. That's the location score, which is a score from 0 to 100.
Right, so a lot of suburbs would be seeing their score dragged down at the moment by those auction clearance rates, I imagine. Are you seeing scores change quite rapidly at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. The biggest changes, because I was looking in my research recently over a 2-year period, so from month to month you don't see much of a change, but over the last 2 years there has been a very dramatic change in Sydney. And when I was looking countrywide for this data, these good suburbs gone bad data, all of them were in Sydney. We had housing markets and unit markets. The biggest slide, the most dramatic slide in location score figures were in the Sydney housing market and in the unit market. And it's a typical case where you've got a couple of things. You either have demand being subdued by unaffordable sky-high prices, or you have developers getting their act together and providing enough supply. So it's always this tug-of-war between supply and demand. And the markets that I found fat into those two categories of either reduced demand because of unaffordable prices, or a massive increase in the count of dwellings in that suburb leading to additional supply. And that's what's caused the balancing out.
So can you start to take us through each indicator and why they're so important?
Yeah, sure. Well, let's start with auction clearance rate. So as you know, not every property that goes to auction sells.
Yeah, we're finding that out the hard way today.
It's a good reflection. The auction clearance rates are an excellent indicator of supply and demand. And
is
this
that
is
a fair, is that a fair sort of measure, particularly in places where auctions aren't very common, like Brisbane isn't a very strong auction market? I mean, I can see why it would apply in Melbourne, but you sort of have to, factor that into the markets that you're looking at?
Yeah, that's right, and that's why we look at a number of different statistics, and that's a really good point, because a lot of investors come unstuck when they look at just 1 or 2 indicators. It's really not until you combine a whole bunch of indicators that you see the overall picture, and you're trying to look at the market from as many different angles as possible, all from a supply and demand perspective. So I'll go through some of these statistics. One, of course, is auction clearance rates, and if the market is very cold, there's more supply than demand, then of course you're going to have a very low auction clearance rate, and that's one of the indicators we use. Another one is the speed at which properties are sold. So when they're first listed for sale, there'll be some negotiating, people will do open inspections. In a hot market, they get snapped up very quickly by eager buyers, and so we've noticed that a days on market, a count of the number of days on market, is an excellent indicator of supply and demand. Another one we look at is the discount. So a property will be offered for sale, let's say for $600,000, there's a bit of negotiating, eventually it sells for say $580,000. that $20,000 difference is the discount. And we calculate that as a percentage, and we've noticed that in hot markets where demand exceeds supply, you'll find that that discount gets very small. In fact, it can actually become negative where people, desperate buyers, are actually offering above the asking price. So if it was $600,000, they might put an offer in for $605,000. But that's extreme cases of demand exceeding supply. Some other metrics we look at would be the percentage of renters in a suburb. Ideally, you don't want to be competing with other landlords in the suburb. You want to be the only landlord offering any property to tenants. So we want the supply, obviously, to be constrained. And that's another one, the percentage of stock on market. So out of all the dwellings in a suburb, how many of those are currently listed for sale? That's the percentage of stock on market. And supply being the enemy of capital growth, if you're a property investor, you're looking for markets with a chronic undersupply of property. So the percentage of stock on market is another good indicator. We also look at vacancy rates, so that's the percentage of properties that are currently listed for rent that aren't occupied. And there's a total of 8 of these metrics. I'll go through the last one. Online search interest is what we call it. So let's say you go to realestate.com.au and you're shopping around for a property. You put in that search criteria, that's recorded, and every property that you look at is recorded, and you can actually get these stats where it'll give you the count of the number of views per property in a suburb. And it's this mini demand to supply ratio. So that's another great indicator. And what we do is we score every suburb on these metrics, and then we combine them all together to have a single score out of 100. It's between 0 and 100. That's the location score.
So what's a good location score then? What's a realistic figure? Do people get 100?
I've never seen 100.
Yeah.
That would be an investor's dream. But I think the highest I've ever seen during the peak in Sydney was around about 90, and there were quite a lot in the high 80s. At the other end of the scale, I've seen some disaster areas around 14. Not quite ghost towns, there's still a pulse there, and this is in the wake of the resources downturn, so it would be like a mining town in Queensland somewhere. But the balance point is a score of about 50. That's where we would expect prices to be flat. So that's where supply and demand are nicely in balance. And of course, that's not of interest to property investors. So you're asking for a good location score, that would be above 62. That's our benchmark. Right. And 77, above 77, is what we call excellent.
Now, obviously, it's an ever-changing landscape, isn't it? Not just because you've got a good score doesn't mean you get to keep that score. So what happens when a suburb goes bad?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's the whole purpose of this research. See, there's this misunderstanding amongst investors that you do your research, you find your suburb, and then you just sit on that expecting it to have above average capital growth in perpetuity, and it just doesn't happen. It never happens. In fact, there are no suburbs in Australia which over multiple decades have ever had a consistent above average rate of growth. They usually have a surge, a boom, and then there's a bust, there's a flattening of growth. And it's this continual surge and slough, boom and bust. So there's this misunderstanding. That's what the research that I undertook was hoping to uncover. And so I was looking for these suburbs that have had this change in supply and demand, even just as recently as the last 2 years. And that's what led me to Sydney in the first place, finding these dramatic slides.
So can you give us a list of maybe the top 10 suburbs with the highest location scores across Australia?
Sure, yeah. I did actually bring with me a list. It's dominated by Canberra, Victoria and Tassie, actually. So we've got Charnwood, that's in the ACT. Glenorchy in Tasmania, that's in Hobart. Another one in Hobart is Howrah. Whittington, which is in Geelong. McGregor in the ACT again. Grovedale, again in Geelong. Mount Evelyn, that's about, I think it's about 45 minutes drive east of the Melbourne CBD. Dunlop, again in the ACT. Newcombe, which is again in Geelong, and Everett in the ACT. And these are all housing markets, not unit markets. Mm-hmm. They all have location scores in the low 80s, which is in the excellent range. And interestingly, they're dominated there in the ACT. There's actually 3 suburbs in that top 10 that are all neighbouring one another. And there's a couple there in Geelong as well. And of course, Hobart, which is going gangbusters at the moment. So these have all got very high demand, relatively low supply.
Right, and who's seen their score go down lately? Which of the suburbs that have come off the boil? Have you got a naughty list as well as your nice list there?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to mention some suburb names here, and I don't want people to get all frightened that
Too late, Jeremy. You're putting it out there now. Yep.
Okay, so these are good suburbs that have gone ordinary, right? From an investor's perspective, ordinary is bad. Yeah. All right, so these are all housing markets. We're talking about Mascot, Caringbah, Tempe, Glenhaven, Balgowlah and Mount Colah. And these are markets which over the last 2 years have seen a significant drop in their location score. So they've had at least a 10-point drop, and I think in one case it was Mount Colah had a 22-point drop, which is about 30%. And 2 years sounds like a long time, but it's actually pretty quick because most property markets are quite stable. And I picked these 6 out because there's 2 things that affect supply, a balancing of the location score. You either reduce demand or you increase supply. And these ones had reduced demand because of tremendous unaffordability. And they've all had fantastic growth over the last 4 years. I think it was Mascot houses had 42.5% growth, and that's at the bottom end of the range. And Caringbah had 60% growth over 4 years. So that's double-digit growth. And that's one set, but I found another set. The other side of the demand and supply equation is the supply side, and these were all, interestingly, unit markets. And that makes perfect sense because it's so easy for unit markets to become oversupplied. In a housing market, in order for oversupply, you need a lot of vacant land to be developed, and that requires a significant amount of infrastructure. But unit markets, they can just keep going higher. You can knock down a few houses across the street, and all of a sudden you've got a whole bunch of units. So the unit markets that suffered were Mascot units. We had big slides in location score, Leichhardt units, Sydney, now this is the suburb of Sydney, not the entire greater metropolitan area, and Erskineville, Rosebery and Penrith. And all of them had this slide because of a sudden and dramatic increase in the stock on market, the percentage of stock on market. So developers have gone crazy, they've been given permission by council, and they've knocked up an enormous amount of property, and that has brought balance back to the market.
Jeremy, I didn't come on the show this morning thinking we were going to play State of Origin, but I feel like we are. Everyone on the bad list is New South Wales. So do you think, or the list that's dropped, of course, do you think that that's...
The ordinary list,
yeah, do you think that that's happened because of being the most populous state, and maybe we were also the market that had gone up the most, and now, therefore, that's going to be reflected in loss of demand?
Yeah, well, it's really just the timing. I mean, Sydney was the golden girl just a couple of years ago, and this is the whole point about property investing, that it's not so much about where you buy. There's no such thing as an investment-grade property. It's just the time that you enter the market. You could have bought almost anywhere in Sydney 5 years ago and had some fantastic growth. I think over the 5-year period from about 2013 to 2018, there was something like a 70% growth in Sydney values. So it's not really a problem, it's just a natural response. When prices grow up, developers recognise an opportunity, they start developing, that increases the supply. High prices then subdue demand, and the cosmos returns to balance.
And we can talk about that cycle at every point of it, and we will, because it is interesting stuff, and those lists are really helpful, a really good indicator for investors as to where they should be looking now. Jeremy Shepherd from Select Residential Property, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Jeremy.
For having me on the show, guys.
With this feeling, it is light, it is bright.
Have a bid here, 1.1 million.
$1,100,000. I'd love to get started at 1.2, but are we happy to get started there, Ian? 1-1 we go. At 1-1, welcome in there, ma'am. Can I say, well done, round of applause if we can. Team, at least, help me. At $1,100,000, welcome in there, ma'am. I hope this is just the start of our relationship. At $1,100,000, I would have thought 50 or 100 to rise. Take it straight to 1.2 if you can. But at $1,100,000 sits here. First. Second. Third and final time. I only give me 3. Take it to 1.2. Here's your chance. But, ma'am, have you stolen the show with your one bid? Wow, what a strategy. At $1,100,000 now. Need that competitive bid to turn it into an auction, and the public debate on price begins. At $1,100,000 now. Make it 150 million in front, of course. 1.2 if you can. But at 1.1, it'll bid 1.1 now. Here's your chance, sir. It's hard to miss those table tennis bats, the paddles there. Happy to take that bid if we can. But at 1.1 on my right playing. Yep, sure. Instructions are clear. Ian has just asked me to place a vendor bid at $1,200,000. As I mentioned earlier, able to place that bid on behalf of the owner at $1,200,000. So I counter your opening at 1.1. We are at $1,200,000 now to bid 1.2. Sitting here with me, owner bid at $1,200,000 now. Where do we go from here? But what I say is make your intentions clear. If you've got the tactic of hanging back, watching and waiting, you need to get it, those bids and those paddles in the air. Ma'am, happy to make that increase there. We're just allowing time, of course, no problem at all. Happy to allow people to have discussions. We understand these are big decisions, but at $1,200,000 now. Once, 2 at $250, 1 1/4. Welcome back in there at $1,250,000, number 13. At $1,250,000 at a bid 1.25. At $1,250,000 back in front where you need to be, 1.3 or maybe 350 if you can. But at 1, 2, 5, 0 with you, ma'am. I congratulate you on your position. Ladies and gents, we call it 3 times. Here it goes. Once. We do a silent one. Third, final time at $1,250,000. Nick, how's it going there with your client on the phone?
It's going good.
Yeah? Can I talk directly to him? Maybe I'll say something nicer. At 10. Nick, can we ask him for 50? At 10. Really, 10? All right, 260 we go. Geez, doing it tough, isn't he? At $1,260,000 now, ma'am, your answer, your retort is what? Steals your lifestyle. Don't let him get away with it. At $1,260,000 now. Can we go 3 or at least maybe 350?
What's your minimum? Is it minimum 10?
Well, minimum 10, absolutely. I'd love to go more, and I'd like to say you can scare off your competition with a larger bid. But at $260,000 now, million front. At $1,260,000. 270 we go. 80 we have. 90 if we can, or larger if you like. $1,280,000 now to be 128. 90, maybe 3 is going to work better now, ma'am. At $1,280,000 here on my left, over the phone with Mr. Thompson. At $1,280,000. Just going to allow Ian to have that little bit of a chat. Sitting here with your client at $1,280,000. At $280,000, yes, thank you, Nick. $290,000, thank you, ma'am. At 3 we travel. At 3 he comes back quickly. 1.3. Just passing that information on. At $1,300,000 now. Happy to allow that time, of course. We're very proud of the job we do here at Ray White Elizabeth Bay. We think we run the fairest and best auctions around, giving everybody absolute fair opportunity. We don't want anyone to miss out.
$1,310,000.
310. Where's he gone? $1,310,000, thank you, man. At $1,310,000, back in front where you need to be to secure the home. It's at 310.
20.
20 we have. Can I suggest a larger number to scare them off? It might just do the job. It make your, to assert your authority.
What's the bid?
$1,320,000. It's at 320 now. At $1,320,000 now, allowing chance. Happy to bring other players in. We know we've got those multiple registered parties. 330 and 40 quickly comes back. Is that 50?
No, 330 it was.
We've gone 40 already.
Oh, okay, good. Moving quickly.
See if you can match his pace. Don't let him intimidate you. At $1,340,000. At 340 now. Of course, Ian, a larger number will work better. 350?
$1,350,000.
Okay.
60.
60 we go. I was about to say, get ready for a larger number. Might just do the job. At $1,360,000, or same for yourself. Pass that message on. At $1,360,000 now. Maybe 1.4 straight there, Nick. At $1,360,000 it is. 360. We appreciate communication just happening here. $1,360,000. Maybe 1.4.
Wait, actually, we're up to 1,380.
380. They've counted the bid, Ian. He's increased his own bid, 1,380,000 at 380 now. When you know you love the home, obviously the client does, you make the move if necessary. At $1,380,000. At 380 now. At $1,380,000, ma'am. We're just pausing at the moment. Okay, what I'd like to say is have time to think. I will come back and confirm and double check with you. But it is at $1,380,000 now. It may just look like that could have been the knockout blow. At $1,380,000, other registered parties, now's the time to make it very, very clear to me. Do not run the risk of missing out. At $1,380,000, we call it away 3 times. At $1,380,000, just Ian confirming instructions. First, second time, third and final time, all the attributes of everything in this beautiful garden apartment, the tranquility. At $1,380,000 with lifestyle at your doorstep.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Maybe 5. Just 5 to find out. I know they work well as a fan, actually. They do. I don't blame you, man. 85. We confirm that. Can I just have that on the paddle, ma'am? Can we just confirm it? Thank you. At $1,385,000, confirming there. At $1,385,000, we've got 5 more, guys. At $1,385,000. At $385,000 now. Maybe 1.5? At 385? 1.1, nicely done. 15.
1.4, is it?
Yep, a rise of 15,000 there, ma'am. At a bid 1.4 on left. Over the phone with Nick Thompson, has a registered bid over the phone at $1,400,000. Lifestyle awaits. Come in, make a few tweaks to this beautiful garden apartment. Here is your chance. At a bid 1.4, we sell it away. First. Second. Third. Final time. We just pause. Ian, just going to give Ian a bit of a chance. Ian has an enviable record at, of course, passing information on and negotiating on the auction floor. It's happening more and more at the moment. 1.4 with you. Appreciate your patience. Can you just say to them, appreciate their patience? Can you just let them know that? $1,400,000 and to be ready for the next bid. Thank you. At $1,400,000, ma'am? Are you sure? Absolutely out. You prepared to let it go?
So we are selling.
You sure you don't want to drop a piano on it? That's $1,000. Maybe 1? Just to find out? It may... Potentially 1.4 was their agreed final moment. You sure? Okay. Oh, well, ma'am, I appreciate your bidding and all the very best for your future property search. Thank you very, very much. Well, it looks like we may have just seen the competition off there. Nick, to your client, at $1,400,000 now at a bid 1.4. I call it away 3 times. Let me be very, very clear. 3 times. Warn them this could be a slow 20 seconds. I congratulate them then. Subject to a further bid, we do sell it away. At $1,400,000 now, once. Twice. Third. Final time, Ian, with your permission, we sell. We are selling 1.4. We are selling, ma'am. Are you sure? Out? 1,000? Absolutely out? 1.4. Selling and sold. Congratulations. At $1,400,000. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your attendance. Congratulations, of course, to our purchaser. Welcome home to them. To my underbidder, thank you so much.
Oh, I'm a bit excited. We got a sale.
We got a sale.
We got a sale.
It looked like it was going to stifle there for a little while, wasn't it? It just started off bidding with $1.1 million at the opening bid, and it went up quite slowly. But Paul Menk, the auctioneer, did manage to get it over the line and draw the crowd out and get them a little bit excited about this beautiful garden apartment, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 1-car, $1.4 million. That is our first sale of the day.
That's such a relief, isn't it? It's getting a bit depressing with all those properties passing in. I don't think I could have handled any more disappointment. So it's great to see that Sydney, which has been the trickiest market lately, to see that this was a good sale. Being a deceased estate, it probably was more likely to sell right from the beginning.
But they still had a realistic figure that they were after as, you know, as a reserve price and an expectation. The apartment has good bones, but obviously there's scope to update the bathroom and kitchen. But with that beautiful outlook and the use of the gardens, which are actually maintained by the strata, you get the benefits of it without all of the maintenance. There's also a pool in this block, so it does have some great lifestyle features as well as being being really easy walk to some shopping and restaurants and cafes nearby, a supermarket, and not far to the train station. So it's all in all, it ticks a lot of those circles.
You were going to say ticks the boxes
No, I wasn't going to say it. Ticks the circles.
Lucky.
And we're very pleased to see that got over the line, and well done to the auctioneer that kept that auction buzzing along and got it over the line for them. Well done.
This elegant, luxurious home is superior and serene. Set on a 102-acre property, it feels like your own world. This is 60 Bresnahan's Lane in Avoca, and we're joined now on the line by Richardson and Wrench selling agent Michael Maloney with all the details. Michael, this house is just nothing short of spectacular. You have beautiful homes down there in the Southern Highlands, but this has really got to be top of the lot, doesn't it?
Yes, certainly. Certainly it is, and yeah, just an amazing position too. Wild Meadow, a casual 18-minute drive out of Barrel, and it probably just rolls perfectly to the north and has all the wonderful things you want if you're in the country.
Look, it's just got manicured lawns, it's got a 20-metre heated indoor pool plus a sauna and a gym, but it has a 2,000-bottle wine cellar. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's nice, centrally located, just off the beautiful kitchen area, and there's actually right beside that cellar is a walk-in cool room, a commercial cool room, and it's just a well-balanced house. Very large home, but it's sensibly planned, and everything just works. It all faces the right way. Most of the rooms all face north and enjoy that magnificent view, a northerly view.
Now, Michael, I feel like the people who've been living here have probably had to leave it very seldom, because you've got your own veggie garden, don't you? Your own entertainment, your own office, the tennis court, the Bulls court. So there's really very little reason to ever have to go through those locked gates, is there?
That's so true. Yeah, it is. It's your own haven. It's amazing, and you've got beautiful spring-fed water too from the dams. Yeah, it's quite unique.
What can you tell us about the people who've been living here and why they're moving on?
Well, they have other properties elsewhere, and they just decided to make a move, to move on, to another area. They've had holdings up on the north coast and out the west, and it was just surplus to their needs, really. They just want to go another direction.
Well, you can go in every direction by getting this property, because we're getting these beautiful aerial shots of just showing that there's nothing around but amazing views and just rolling hills to go and walk along. 102 acres property. It's got a price guide of $8.9 million on that. And how's it going, and how long has it been on the market?
It's only been on a week, and we've had quite a few inspections, and second inspection happening in the middle of the week. Yeah, look, there's genuine interest in it, and yeah, we're comfortable that we will get a result, because I have made some serious sales in the last few weeks, not too far from this property.
Well, James and I would like to do a weekend-long inspection. We'll arrive with our staff as well, because we'll need them down there.
Yeah, and that cellar might not look the same after we've left. But it's a beautiful property, Michael. How can people view this property?
Totally by appointment only. I don't open homes up like this for just open inspection.
Yep.
But yeah, totally by appointment, but we can do most any time.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. There's a great property there in Boca, New South Wales. Great location. We're just finishing with that amazing shot of that indoor pool. No need to be unhealthy there with that one. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.